What's good with y'all boys? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Sports Podcast. Today I'm just here to break down the breaking news on two of the best coaches in their respected areas, Nick Saban retiring and Bill Belichick in the NFL. In my opinion, the two GOAT coaches of their league, so to say. First one, yesterday around midday, Nick Saban retiring. It was a little bit of a surprise to me and everyone else, I think, honestly. He just took his team to the semifinal game in the college football playoffs. It's now growing to 12 teams next year. He seemed to have everything in front of him. He just got a big contract a couple years ago. That was, I think, 10 years. So nobody really expected this, but I can't blame the man at all. Just to look at some of the things he's done through his career. I mean, 7 national titles. One of those was at LSU. Well, even before that, he coached of the Browns, some the Dolphins. He's been around the league. Comes to LSU, wins a national title. Then he gets 6 more at Alabama. That brings to 7. He has 9 SEC conference titles. That's amazing. 292 wins, the most out of anybody in college football, out of any head coach. A 5-time SEC Coach of the Year. A 2 times AP National Coach of the Year. He sent 49 players in the first round, and he only had 29 losses. That's over 20 more wins, or 20 more players to get drafted in the first round than losses. And look at some of his assistants. One great thing about Nick Saban is the team around him, whether it's players or coaches, thrived in other areas. We look at his assistants, Kirby Smart, back-to-back defending national championships, champions. Before, of course, Michigan won, but Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian just took his team to the semifinal, lost to Washington. Jimbo Fisher, he won a national title at Florida State. Lane Kiffin, we see what he did with Ole Miss this year. I think they were ranked number 9 in the country. Billy Napier, Florida has been struggling, but nonetheless, he's still a solid head coach. Dan Lanning, we see what he did with Oregon this year. Number 5 team in the nation, had a chance to go in the college football playoffs, and will definitely get there last year if he's still there. We never know. Will Muschamp, he was a part of that defensive staff. I think he was the D coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs this year in their back-to-back champion runs. Look at Brian Daboll. He is a magnificent coach for the Giants. I mean, we see what he did with Daniel Jones. We see what he did with Josh Allen in years before. Jason Garrett, great coach for the Cowboys. Mario Cristobal at Miami, and then Adam Gase. I think he's one of the coordinators for the Jets. So that's just, there's more that I'm not even naming. I think the Maryland head coach is one of them. There's so many guys that coach with Nick Saban that have gone on to thrive in the NFL, and that's just something that he did. Anytime guys leave one area and thrive, a lot of it has to do with where they came from, especially when it comes to coaching. A lot of those guys learn from Nick Saban, especially Kirby Smart, and we know how good of a coach he is. He's the only coach to win 3 different national championships in 3 different decades. He's the only coach with multiple Heisman winners: Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Devontae Smith, and Bryce Young. And he had more than more other guys to be in that Heisman conversation. I just know Mac Jones was the year Devontae Smith won it. He's had 16 straight 10-win seasons. He's had 109 weeks as ranked number 1 in the country. That's the most all time. 16 straight 10+ win seasons is the most all time. He has 104 wins versus ranked opponents. That's number 1 all time. He's beaten 9 number 1 overall teams. That's the most all time. Everything he does, most all time. And I just think it's an amazing career he had. No doubt about that. What he did is crazy. I'm a Georgia fan, and seeing him retire, yeah, I'm relieved, but it's still sad to see him go, even though he did own everybody, but also the Georgia Bulldogs. It's just amazing what this guy's done. He's the undisputed GOAT as far as head coaches go in college football, and it's going to be hard to top him. It's going to take many, many years to top him. Just what he does, the ability to own these people, the way he recruited, the way he coached, the way no matter what happened, his team's always had a chance. You look at what he did this year with about a dysfunctional Alabama team we've seen, still takes them to the semifinals. It's really amazing. Before this year, the longest they've gone without winning the title in his run has been 3 years. That's just crazy. There's been teams who've never won a title, but your longest streak under you to be 3 years without winning a title is just crazy. So I have none but respect for Nick Saban, what he did at Alabama, and I'm just happy to see him finally lay it down and move on to the next chapter of his life. Now to move on to Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick had a mutual parting with the New England Patriots. It was definitely firing, but I respect the Patriots for not firing him outright. He's done too much for their organization. 29 seasons coaching, but I think about 20-something there, maybe. It's been a long time he's coached there. But 6 Super Bowls, 3 Coach of the Year. I don't know how many division titles. I don't know how many AFC titles he's won. He's a 2021 Executive of the Year. And he only needs 15 wins to get Don Shula's record of 347. He's currently at 333. So if he gets 348, which I think he will, go to another team, probably most likely another contender. He's not done. He's going for Don Shula's record. No doubt about that. He definitely is. It's just going to happen. Now, things you do bring up with this coach is Spygate, Deflategate, things of that nature. It's definitely going to come up, and rightfully so. I think they deserve to come up. Because anytime you talk about the GOAT of coaches, and GOAT of players, you bring up their flaws, you bring up all these things. His lack of success without Tom Brady is definitely a big deal as well. So you have to bring up these things when you talk about the greatest coaches of ever, or the greatest players, and any great people in their respective areas of work. You're going to have to bring up the positives and the negatives. But just to compare Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, the big question, or not big question, but one of the questions, or one of the, I guess, nice thoughts to do is, who's the better coach? And I think it's unquestionably Nick Saban. Nick Saban, in college, is different than the pros. In the pros, you sign contracts. You're kind of sort of obligated to have these players for a certain amount of years. You know you're going to have for a decent amount of time. For instance, Bill Belichick won all 6 Super Bowls with Tom Brady. He realized the new Tom Brady is going to be a big key of his success. So he didn't have to worry about switching players, switching defense coordinators, or switching, a lot of people around. But in college, every 4 years, every 2 years, especially now, every year, you get a whole new group of guys almost, especially with the transfer portal. But the way that not Bill Belichick, but Nick Saban has still been able to dominate the sport is crazy. You think about how many assistants he lost. Think about all the quarterbacks, the receivers, coaches, linemen, D-line, offensive line. All these guys that he loses every year, sometimes in the fall they lose guys, in the spring they lose guys. With the transfer portal, it's opened up so many doors. And just his ability to adapt and switch, you think about usually older guys are stuck in their ways. Nick Saban went from being heavily reliant on the defense, then heavily reliant on the run game. Then you look at a couple years ago, airing the ball out with Mac Jones and Devontae Smith, and then even this year, kind of went back to the run game and playing more defense. But his ability and his way of just adapting really just shows how great of a coach he is, because a lot of guys don't want to adapt. Bill Belichick, I hate to say it, but he still hasn't really adapted yet, it seems like. And I think he will whenever he gets up his new job, and I think he will get Don Shula's record. But I don't think it's really a question with who's the better coach all time, or who's the greatest coach all time. Nick Saban has almost all the records in every important stat when it comes to football. When it comes to college football head coaching, this guy's doing it with new guys every single year, new assistants every single year. And to go back to what I said earlier, looking back on how well and how his assistants thrive at different areas goes to show how good of a coach he is. You look at all the assistants that Bill Belichick has. The guy who just got fired from the Raiders, awful. These other guys that have been through Bill Belichick, a lot of them have been awful. But the majority of the guys who come from Nick Saban thrive outside of him, because I feel like they take so much from him, and he just gives them such valued information, whether it's recruiting, and also the big thing about college and NFL, you have to be a people's person. You have to know how to recruit and how to talk to people and how to hold on to people, because nowadays it's a lot about money. But even before then, it was just strictly the success of your program, of course. Competing for jobs, whether there's a guy who thinks he's going to go somewhere, but he has a better chance of starting somewhere else similar. He's probably going to go somewhere else. But it's a way of getting loads of talent, being able to talk to them. When they go anywhere in the country, they're going to go to Alabama. It takes skill to be able to sit down with a 19, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old. Hey, man, come to our program. And the amount of number 1, number 2, number 3, top 3 classes that they had is ridiculous. I don't think we'll ever see a guy like that again dominate any sport or any one area ever again, because it's ridiculous, especially in the sports world, to be able to do this with the amount of movement that has happened over the years, and how he's just consistently showed dominance and showed how to win, given any situation, is just truly amazing. So it was just a quick podcast to break down my thoughts on 2 of the greatest coaches of all time in their respective areas retiring, both Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. Bill Belichick, we'll see him again. Nick Saban, hats off to a wonderful coaching career. But Man, I appreciate y'all watching. It's just a little quick breakdown. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to get all the newest content from Rank, Everything Sports Podcast. And as always, tune in next time. Peace.